So the difference in praising for growth mindset traits versus fixed mindset traits. Like parents don't know that. Like I love you because you're so talented. I love you. Comes across as I love you because you're so talented. Yeah. As opposed to like, man, I love how hard you're working. Yeah. I love you. Like look how you dealt with that situation. Look how tough you were. Look things that the kids can control. So that separating the praise from fixed to growth is, I think, the absolute biggest thing. And then putting in the context of what do you want your kids to get out of sport?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men podcast. Become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. My name is Dennis Meraldi, your host, joined as always by my younger brother and now audio-visual technician and expert, Anthony Meraldi. What's up, bro?
So I'm going to do this one. Can I put that on my resume?
You can. What does your resume consist of now? Can we go through your resume and talk about all the things you've done besides male escort for older men who are looking for a warm body? And
I was. What is it called when somebody goes just on vacations with like a
prostitute?
No. Well, I don't actually. There's no like physical. I mean, there can be, but that's extra. But I'm just the one that's like their little. Absolutely.
So, all right, what are your boundaries then? If you were one, I want to know, like, what are your boundaries, and then what's your price range? Like, what do you?
Oh, jeez.
All right, so let me say. So, there's a woman in her mid-50s.
Okay.
She looks all right. But you could tell, she was a smoker for years, and
right. She's got a little raspy voice.
Yeah.
She's had a couple miles on the.
Anthony.
Yeah. Oh,
you're looking
God.
good.
That's way worse than.
All right, so.
Okay.
She asked you to go to,
So I just have to be like her little
you're
side
her arm
piece. Her
candy. You're going to wear a Speedo on the beach.
Okay. So I have outfits now, so that's incled. So she picks out my outfits.
Yes.
Is she purchasing these for me? I don't
have
to.
You
I
don't
basically
have to
don't have to bring anything.
You don't have to bring anything. You'll escort her to some event.
Okay. So it's like
where
a big
she will
thing
be noticed, so she's getting.
Oh wow! Yeah. So that's even. I feel like that works in my favor. Like I wouldn't charge. That would take a little bit off the price because now I'm kind of.
So it's 3 days, 2 nights.
3 days. Where am I at?
Tropical island somewhere. You pick. You're in the Bahamas.
I want to be in Aruba.
Aruba. You're in Aruba.
Okay. And she has me for 3
nights. 3 days, 2 nights.
2 nights. Okay. Oh jeez. Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna sell myself short. What is my body worth? I'd probably say.
And your soul. I mean, more than anything, your soul. Whatever.
It's fine. And there's no fit. We're not getting physical at all.
That's not part of the contract. But
okay,
you know
but
it's going to happen.
If things get a little.
You know it's happening.
I know. Get a couple drinks in me, and I'm all jacked up because she got an award. I'd probably put it at like $2,000.
All right.
I think that's pretty good.
I would.
And then do I get to keep the outfits that she buys for me?
I think so. I think that's part of it.
I think that's pretty good, right?
Listen, I think that's a good starting point.
I don't think there's a reason not to do that. I mean, if you have a significant other, maybe you'd run into some issues. But if they get what it is, and then, whatever, I get a.
All right. I was just interested.
She touches my leg a little bit. It's not like there's no clothes that come off, but, we snuggle.
It's not part of the contract. That's what I'll say. It's not part of the contract.
I guess I have add-ons as it goes.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a Chinese menu.
Right.
You want the Mugu Gai pan, and you want the inner leg touching as well.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so that's going to be an extra $300. So we're looking at about,
$2,750 total.
The whole trip.
Because you have me bending down in front of you every morning.
Right, now I got to do a little dance before we go to bed.
So quick thing, we had a couple responses on Instagram about feedback to our podcast. A couple. Not like a kind of like a Q&A thing. So just 2 listeners have questions to ask us. The first one was to me, and it was, Dennis, what's up with the audio? It sounds like a big, hairy, sweaty man is sitting on your face at times during the intro. That only happened once.
Yeah,
with the man on my face. Other than that, it was the mic.
I think that tweaked the mic after it actually happened originally. But thank you for the for the comment. We really appreciate it. Yep. We always appreciate our listeners having something to say.
And we've hopefully alleviated that problem with the mic. But there were a couple episodes that we interviewed where it was like that.
Yeah, I know. I got a couple comments that said it sounds like you're trapped inside of a microphone.
Right, I'm inside of it.
You're
trying to
in
get
the
out.
microphone
it's like
trying to get out.
And a question for you: is it true about the third nipple?
Yes. Yeah. I got it removed though.
Okay.
So I had it. And
so it's just
people started asking questions when I would go on long runs, and there was 3 things that were bleeding on my shirt.
Circles on your shirt. Now it's a small percentage.
So I don't have to tape. I don't have to use 3 Band-Aids now. I got the other one removed. It was a long process, painful.
And it improved your performance.
Absolutely.
Good segue into our guest here, who is a performance mindset coach and Enlifted Level 2 coach. We have Clint Laukhuf on the show. Clint, welcome to the Building Men Podcast.
Hey guys, thanks. I got a question about that third nipple. I mean, are we going like Total Recall, like totally symmetrical, or was it like...
like the 3?
Oh my God, yeah, makes you wish you had 3 hands.
Yeah, no, it was under my left armpit, so weird spot. I actually am curious about that. Where's the spot of the third, like people who have third nipples? Serious question. Where is it usually located? Is it certain spots that this usually happens? I don't know if you know anything about this, because I don't know. I know there was a kid in high school that I knew that had 3 nipples, and the one was on like his stomach, and it was a nipple.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your expertise in extra nipple placement, Clint?
This is it. It was before the podcast 0, and now I'm at a 1 to 2%. I would say.
All right.
Good. That's more than most people, I think. So.
So with I introduced you as a performance mindset coach. Take us back a little bit into your origin story. Where did you start off? Did you always know you wanted to work in this space? With Enlifted, a lot of it is around the language that we're using when we're speaking to ourselves, especially performance. And I can't wait to talk to you about the performance mindset, because we're such a student. We were both athletes growing up in high school and then in college, and so much of how we perform is based on the stories that we're telling ourselves, positively and negatively. So tell us a little bit about how you got to that point where that's what you're doing right now.
As an athlete in high school, I did it 100% wrong. Tennis player, serving volleyer, and I was going on 4-mile runs every morning. My coaches didn't know what I was doing, and I felt slow as hell. It was after the Marine Corps that I realized that I had done it wrong, and went on this quest to be the best coach I could be. And luckily I found Enlifted, and it was one of the things that, actually brought full circle. Military training, me as an athlete, the coaching search that I've been on. And so with the performance mindset piece, you always hear what percentage of your sports are mental. And the number's high. It's about 50%. Yet when you ask athletes, you ask parents, you ask other coaches, what are you doing to train that performance piece, that mindset piece? It's a shrug. It's I write goals. It's affirmations. And what I'm doing is bringing everything full circle. So with athletes so the way story work folds into the mindset piece is, if an athlete chokes, that becomes a story in their mind that as they're in that situation in the future, it's happening again. And so people lock up, the pucker factor increases, and it creates this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so what I'm working on is creating a series. Well, the series is created, running athletes through a series of story work sessions, and it addresses their stories, the roles in their life, parents, other coaches, creates power phrases, because mantras sound a little woo-woo for teenagers or parents. So power phrases where if you can deal with the anxiety in a basketball game, in a football game, in a tennis match, then that same anxiety you can deal with taking a test. So that's the performance mindset piece. And
Yeah, I'm interested in the power phrase piece of it. I hadn't heard that term before, and I'll take you back. So I'll take you back to my high school experience. My sophomore year, I kind of burst onto the scene in high school. My first ever at bat in high school, I hit a grand slam. So it's funny. My father said, "Well, there's nowhere to go but down from here, Dan." Like that's just,
Thanks, Pops.
big pep talk. But I made like all county second team as a sophomore. My primary sport was as a pitcher, and I did really really well. And I was a tall, lanky righty. I had like 5 different pitches. I was pretty accurate. But for some reason, my junior year it coincided with me, getting laid more often, and then also finding alcohol. I think that definitely was part of the equation.
Performance de-hancer.
Yeah, exactly. A couple de-hancers, de-optimizers. But my junior year, I still did well on the hill. I could still, I was pitching was fine. Once there was a ball that was hit to me on the ground or there was a bunt, the story that I told myself, I couldn't get the ball to first base. I don't even know if you knew this story. Like, ground ball to me, I would catch it. I'd all the time in the world. I'd turn and sail the ball 40 feet over the first baseman's head. Or, like, I would try to rush it and I'd throw the ball in the dirt, and it became a thing. Like, I would almost avoid situations where if there was a bunt, I'd let the third baseman get it because I knew if I grabbed it, I was going to throw it away. And it became like this self-fulfilling prophecy. Every time that there was a ball on the ground, I was nervous. I was afraid to pick off a guy at first base. Meanwhile, I was throwing a ball on the inside corner, at 85 miles an hour, wherever I wanted to put it. But as soon as the ball was hit on the ground to me or something, I couldn't do it anymore. And it's funny. It was cathartic just to talk about that. I haven't talked about that in 30 years, I don't think. So now you're working with me, and I need to come up with some kind of power phrase. Or how would you help me through that situation? I'm like a total basket case now, and I come to you for help.
What's the first time you remember feeling that way? The first time you overthrew or you didn't get the ball to first base?
First time I remember, it would have been in my junior year.
You got an instance?
Yeah, I do. I got it.
So title it. What would the title of that instance be?
I would title it E1.
Cool. What's the worst time? The biggest choke?
It would have been in the county semifinal game. I was
cool. You got an incident. What's it called?
Oh man, that was like the worst of the worst. That would have been, the worst of the worst.
Worst of the worst. Are there any other big times that popped up in your mind?
Those are the two. I'm sure I could probably figure out a couple more. Those were the two that really stick out. I remember the first time sailing the ball over first baseman's head, and then I remember the worst of the worst time where it was a tournament game, county tournament. We were in the semifinals.
Cool. So as you were like thinking of those times, what did you notice? What did you feel?
I felt guilt. I felt like helplessness. I felt that I let my team down, that I let my school down by my lack of performance in those situations.
And then where do you feel it in your body? Tension, heat, color?
I feel almost like a numbness. I feel in my tightness in my chest. Color? It's like a baseball field color. Like the dirt of the baseball field. That's the color that I'm seeing.
So that's exactly how it would start. If there was a situation, that's how the coaching would start. You have 2 instances titled out. You would write those out, and so however long it would take. So you'd write out E1, you'd write out worst of the worst, and I'd sit here and chill till you're done writing. You would read through it. We'd repeat that same process. Hey, how does it feel now? What was the color? Is there a difference in how it feels? We'd slow it down. So you would read those same stories at 70% speed, and then I'd ask if something else comes up. And one of the cool things about slowing it down is more stuff's going to come up. It creates space. The other cool thing about writing the story down is that, like, missing the first baseman, that choke, that letting your team down, that's filling this. It's a loop in your head. And by writing these stories down, all it does is break the loop. And so now you've got a start, you've got an end, you've got a story. The final piece is adding breath. And so by just breaking the story down, everywhere there's punctuation, adding a deep breath, it changes the energy of the story. And then what I do with athletes is like, so the next time, how do you want to show up in that moment? Like, what does it look like the next time? You know, and then it'll be a conversation back and forth, and we'll come up with a couple of phrases, and one will usually resonate more than the others. And so, depending on how many stories, depending on how much you write, you know, that process can take 5 minutes. That process can take 30, 45 minutes.
And one of those phrases, they become the power phrase then? That's what I'm looking for? Is that power phrase?
That's the power phrase. So I was actually working with a 12-year-old soccer player. She was preparing for tryouts. And the year before, she got knocked down. She was playing defense and then got up slow. And she looked and saw her dad, kind of looked down. She looked and saw the coach turn and look the other way. So this idea of not being tough, of being knocked down, was stuck in her head. And so her dad, very supportive. He and I had conversations back and forth. He's like, hey, this year in tryouts, you're just going to repeat to yourself, I'm a badass, I'm a badass, I'm a badass. Because he bought into the power phrase thing. I sat there and I talked with her, and she wouldn't say it. She wouldn't say, I'm a badass. I'm like, well, why not? She goes, because it's a bad word. All right, okay. So she doesn't want to call herself a bad word. So we talked about, we wrote out the story, and hers was 4 lines. And like, I get up quick. Okay. And so someone who gets up quick, what are they? And, you know, she came up with resilient. I led her towards tough. She liked resilient better than tough. So I was like, hey, I'm resilient. Like, resilient people. And then she wrote out like what resilient people do. You know, like, they get up fast, they're tough, they hustle for everything. And so this idea of, it's her phrase, her meaning, because, you know, I'm a badass from her dad is tied to being resilient. And so she was willing to write, I'm a badass under resilient, but not willing to say it. So that's, you know, and those phrases are incredibly powerful and connected to, like, you, and personal, incredibly personal.
That story resonated with me as well. And even I go through my story, I remember sailing the ball over the first baseman's head and looking at my old man, and just a look of disgust on his face of what just happened. And our situation was, if you made a mistake, and, you know, especially in a situation where a mistake cost your team the game, there wasn't a whole lot of it was either negative talk, like, you know, screaming on the way home, or I'm going to totally avoid you for the next week until you prove to me that you can throw that damn ball to first base. So while you were saying that, going back to that story, I'm wondering how much work that you're doing. You know, the kids are telling themselves, or the clients that you're working with are telling themselves this story in their heads. How much of it is also tied to deeper trauma? You know, a family member, like, you know, the dad who's trying to live vicariously through the kid. And if so, how do you work with that? Because now you have another layer that you have to peel back.
So the end product is a 1-page document where all the coaches that they're working with are listed, the parents' roles that the kid defines and the parents agree to, you know, and then the players' goals. So the parents know this going in. It's like, hey, you know, by our 3rd or 4th call, they're going to tell you, they're going to ask you how they want you to be during games, during practices, during the car ride home. Like, this is coming. And if I get resistance from parents, I go, you realize let's say your kid gets the college scholarship. Let's say they're a 10-year pro. They're an NFL veteran 10 years down the road. They're going to have a last game, and they're going to still have 50, 80 years of their life left. How do you want to be remembered? Yeah, so how do you want to be remembered after their last competition? That gets a lot of the parents that are on the fence to buy in. Okay, The other piece is if your kid doesn't want you to watch them play their games, you think they're going to let you watch their kids? Do you want to be part of your grandkids' lives? And so those connections, as the deeper stuff comes up, if the story work process, the 4-step, titling, writing it out, reading it, like doesn't create some sort of resolution, then we bring the parents in like automatically. Hey, this is beyond my scope of work. This is, but so far the story work, going through the 4-step process, which we started with you in the first base, has created some sort of resolution.
Have you had a situation where the parents were just so like, no, I need to be there. I need to be pacing up down the sidelines. They need to listen to me because I played, college basketball and I know better than they do. Have you had to have any of those conversations like, all right, listen, Buck, like, come on over here. We gotta have a conversation. It's not about you. Take yourself out of it. And if so, what was their reaction?
So the college basketball players, the college baseball players, they are the best parents. Like you look at former athletes, they get it. It's the parents that haven't competed or the peak of their life was at 17, 18. And now all the athletic hopes and dreams are living through their kids that are the ones pacing up and down the sideline. They're the ones. And so I haven't had those conversations because the door hasn't been open to those parents. And so, meaning like they haven't sought me out as their coach. And so me sitting at a game, watching someone else compete and seeing all this other stuff, it's not my place to go over there and say, hey, like you need to change the way you're.
Is there some kind of a vetting process that you use for people that want to work with you? Like if, Serena Williams' dad comes up and he's like, my daughter's on this strict training regimen. I need her to get this way because this is about me, blah, blah, blah. Like, is there something where you'd be like, you know what? I appreciate your interest, but, this is not the best scenario for us to work together.
That has not happened, and I'm very willing to have that conversation.
Okay.
So I've been fired from free tennis lessons, and I've fired clients in the past. But as far as that intro vetting process, there's been some sort of connection with all my previous clients. They knew what they were getting from me, or it was a referral, or I've had a lot of. I'm really proud of this, siblings. So like an older sibling, a middle sibling, a younger sibling. Like so families have been with me for a while. So that's and that's as a tennis coach. So and as I was leveling up with the mindset work, all of the previous clients were getting pieces of it. Previous students were getting pieces of that as well.
When you started doing the work, was there that story that you told yourself about your experience playing high school sports that you needed to work through on a really deep level to get you to the next level?
So how far along are you in Enlifted?
I went through 2 classes so far.
So in the performance mindset series, the Billy story is part of it. So having an athlete write down what that shit talking inner evil part of ourselves is saying.
Yeah.
So it's the initial questions. Where does this self talk come up? And a huge part of my Billy story was, like my parents were incredible, like athlete parents. So my dad played college tennis. My granddad was incredibly hard on my dad, and so my dad was a 180 from that. But when I was 15, my dad said, "Prove to me that you want it, and we'll give you these lessons. We'll send you to these groups." And so my proving to him that I wanted it was beating him out the door on the 4-mile run every day, which made me a worse athlete. When I did, so there was one day I was in the kitchen and he's like, I didn't make it today. And I was like, no, I'm back. from the run. And the next day he got me in groups. It was like 6 months, 8 months of doing this. And so when I got into groups, the coaches had me with the younger kids. So I'm 15, 16, 17, practicing with these 13 and 14-year-olds. And so I had this huge, like, I got to prove it and not good enough. And coaches have me with these younger kids was a huge part of my story. And as I was, going through one of the reads, this whole other like paragraph popped into my head. So working through this like not good enough shit talk, which was a lot stronger language than shit talk. This other story popped in. It was, these coaches respected my work ethic, because it dawned on me I was playing with some of the kids that are the top 10 in the nation in 14 and under. Like, they respected my work ethic. They respected this. Then like the drive home from Abilene to Dallas, 3-hour drive. The drive home, and my dad not saying a word in the car because he agreed that he wouldn't say anything about the match unless I said something. And so he's not mad. He's just driving. Like, the agreement was like, I speak first. And like, I was so pissed about this match. He drove 3 hours without saying a word. Like, no radio, no nothing. He's driving. And so like, because like he was willing to do that, like, I felt all this love from this shit talking story.
It's deep. I can't imagine. I think about anytime that happened, it wasn't. It felt like our dad was pissed at us. If it was silence treatment, it never felt like
it was more of a like he wouldn't speak to us because we didn't perform well enough in the game. That was usually when we didn't have a conversation about the game itself because we didn't do good. So that was linked to that every time that there was no conversation. It was silence because we knew we underperformed in whatever sporting event we were at during that time. So.
Well, this was also pre-planned. This was agreed upon beforehand.
Yeah.
So the conversation. My dad was a cafeteria manager, a restaurant manager. So I remember I would work for him on every weekend I wasn't in a tournament. So I was in more tournaments than working. But there's one day working for him, like he and I having lunch. He's like, how do you want me to be after a match? And like I didn't know, like legit didn't know. And it was at the end of the day. It's like, well, can we just wait? Can you just wait until I ask you? He's like, okay. It was as simple as that. Okay. And that was a few months after the conversation. So like it was 44-year-old coach talking about, how my dad didn't speak for 3 hours in a really good way. So it was powerful. And teaching other parents how to do the same.
What if you had a playbook to give to parents who their kids are involved in sports on a higher level? So, maybe it's not a slam dunk, but there's a possibility that if they continue on their trajectory, they have an opportunity to maybe play beyond high school sports. If you were giving advice to parents, what should they do and what should they not do? How would you start that conversation off?
I'm developing the playbook. So I'm throwing it out here now. There will be a book. I am writing it. It's going to happen. This is the second place I've said that. So it starts off with stuff like, as an educator. So the difference in praising for growth mindset traits versus fixed mindset traits. Like, parents don't know that. Like, I love you because you're so talented. I love you. Comes across as, I love you because you're so talented. Yeah. As opposed to like, man, I love how hard you're working. Yeah. I love you. Like, look how you dealt with that situation. Look how tough you were. Look, things that the kids can control. So that praise, separating the praise from fixed to growth is, I think, the absolute biggest thing. And then putting in the context of, what do you want your kids to get out of sports? Like, sports should make your kids a better human being. What traits do you want them to get out of it? And so once you get past that initial college scholarship phase, college scholarship talk, then it's like, oh, I want them to be good sports. I want them to understand the value of hard work and seeing results from that. I want them to be tough and problem solving, and I want them to be connected socially with the group and know how to deal and interact with other people. And so once those things get clear in the parent's mind, then the shift is to praise those traits. The other piece to this is knowing what the kid's working on with all their coaches. And so a parent looks at competition, and all they see is the result, what's happening. And the assumption is either everything that's happening is on purpose, or they're not training enough to not be on purpose. And so, no, like, think about being an athlete and trying to do something, failing, and then hearing about how you failed, and it's like, fucking no, that's what I was trying to do.
Yep.
So starting a conversation with like, hey, what this happened, what were you trying to do? And that also empowers the kid to speak up, to speak for themselves. That deepens the relationship with you and your kid. If there's that simple question, what were you trying to do? And now that changes how the conversation goes. One of the topics is force multiplier or limiting factor. Like, it's your choice which one you are for your kid. Are you the limiting factor, or are you what's behind them, pushing them forward? And how to be that.
It's interesting.
So no parent wants to say, yeah, you know what, I'm the guy that, like,
yep.
You know what, I made it to state in high school. There's no way I want my kid to go to state. Like, I've got to do better than my kid. Like, no, it's flipped. And so how do you do that?
What you just said about the when there's something that goes wrong. When I work with individuals now, it's when there's a situation, when there's a problem that happens, what I try to do is get individuals, to get educators to separate. It's not you versus the kid. It's not you versus the other individual in this situation. What you have to start switching your mindset to is you want to be on the same side looking at the problem. So whatever that problem is, so if it's, a lack of the performance wasn't the way it could have been a temper tantrum on. It's not like I'm shaming you based on this. Like, come over here next to me. Let's look at this situation that happened. This event happened. What can we do together so this doesn't happen again in the future? So then it becomes a teamwork situation against a situation or a problem to not occur again, rather than, oh man, my dad doesn't love me, my mom doesn't love me, I fucked up in this situation. That was one thing I thought. The second thing with praise, as I work with educators, praise is something that comes up frequently. And you were talking just like the difference between, like growth and fixed. What's the motive? And I talk about the motivation behind praise. I see teachers all the time. They use praise, and I ask them what their motivation is, and they want the kids to feel good or to like them, is what it comes out, or feel good about themselves. Oh, Clint, great job. Anthony, way to go. That was tremendous. Awesome. So good, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, it becomes to a point where it's almost like white noise when you're overpraising your kids. So think about what the motivation is behind the praise. And if the motivation is just to get them to comply, then it's not doing its job. So I often push back, and I'll say, instead of using praise all the time, take out a couple instances, and instead of saying, oh, Clint, that was so great, I love the way that you volleyed on that serve and you got the point, or whatever, after the deuce you blah blah blah. I would tell people, like, ask a couple questions about it. What was your favorite part about that volley? When did you make the decision to go down the right side, or whatever it was? Like, insert whatever term here, but push it back on a question. So now the learning continues. It makes them become really reflective about the experience, not just getting that validation of, way to go, good job, let's go for a scoop of ice cream right now.
Well, there's another layer to that also. The other layer is, like, you're seeing the outcome. What if they weren't trying to do the thing you're praising them for?
Right. Yep.
So then the praise becomes even like, it was an accident that I played that well of a point. Yeah. So,
and I'll never do that again. So then it's like,
yeah, it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned like going through and you had to, your the work that you did with yourself after you went back and you told your stories about high school tennis and beyond. Did you have to give yourself a power phrase as you went through this? Did you go through that process?
I already had some strong ones in place. So years ago, one of the certifications I went through for tennis was like, "What's your philosophy?" And I'm like, "Teach players how to win." Like, what do you mean philosophy? And um, lady was incredible. She's like, "No, um, how do you act in tough situations? If you have a philosophy written out, will those, whatever they are, will it show up in the tough situations? Will your students recognize like your philosophy if you told them after the fact?" Like, oh, and so I've been working on it for years, and it's do good, move forward, be free, to create the biggest impact possible. And so all of those phrases gained more depth as I was working through that. So doing good, like there's 3 pages about what doing good is.
That that also makes me think about my own high school experience. I had after that year of that mind fuck that was going on in my head. I had a coach that worked with me, and basically we started small, and he had me go. I would field a ground ball a foot from first base, and he would just have me toss the ball to first, like it was literally this far away. Yeah. And we would just work our way back, and he's like, "Were you successful doing that?" And I was like, "Yeah, coach, I was." And then we take a step away, and he did it again. "Were you successful in doing that?" "Yes, I was." "All right, we're gonna move away again. Visualize yourself being successful." So he worked to where I was, fielding a ball on the third base line and throwing a seed to first base. But it took 2 or 3 practices, and I felt like a total schmo. Like everybody's watching me, and I'm like 2 feet away from first base, like throwing like that. And it's like, but it worked. And then my senior year and beyond, I didn't make another fielding error. But he recognized that I needed to do that work and rewrite that story in my head. And it wasn't. I don't. He didn't. He did it because he felt that it was going to be the muscle memory and the positive reinforcement that was happening, these incremental things of success that I would find. And I remember back, and that totally changed the trajectory of my athletic career, was just that coach taking the time to do that with me. So I love what you're doing. I think it's awesome that you're recognizing the importance of how the mind plays into the athletic ability.
I appreciate that. And then the other piece is like, I believe in sports, coaches, parents, athletes, we all like that recognition's been there for years. It's the okay, so what do I do about it? Like what's the outcome? What's tangible? And you know, goals connected to an identity is a huge piece. That identity piece is also connected to mantras or power phrases.
With the work that you've done, seeing kids that have gone through challenging situations where they're in that loop of not finding success, and I'm sure that's a lot of the people that are working with you are going through this challenging spot. Have you witnessed kids that on the other side of it, like Michael Jordan in '96? It could be like Oral Hershiser in the late '80s on the hill for the Dodgers, where they were in the zone. If that thing actually exists, where it doesn't, like, every ball that a batter's hitting looks like a beach ball. Every single, time somebody throws up a shot, it's going in. Have you seen that, where a kid is so dialed in that they are just in that zone, so to speak?
So the zone is, think of it like, well, flow state. But it can even be simpler. It's being in that stressful situation, but being in the parasympathetic nervous system. And so being able to perform while you're calm. And so yes, I've seen athletes take control of their breathing, because breathing's a huge part of all of this. Take control of their breathing and go from like bound up to like, oh, and you just see that little wiggle, and it's like, they're there, they're dialed in, or different athletes will have that a different walk about them when they're down regulated, but they're still like in it mentally. Is that making sense?
Definitely.
And I think about, like, especially when it comes to baseball, the difference that I've had from like when I was in that flow state. I could picture the exact moment where I was up at bat and I'm 12 for 12. I'm in the paper. There is not a chance anyone could strike me out. I'm either getting walked or I'm hitting the ball. No other way around it. And I was calm as can be. Nothing fazed me. And then follow that up by the next year, literally just the next year. So I was 15 in All-Stars. And then the following year when I was 16, I was 0 for 14. I couldn't hit the ball. I didn't even play, right? I sat on the bench for a good portion of the season, and that happens in so many aspects of my life where, like, you know, I'll go in and it's just easy. And then all of a sudden that same thing is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like I can't even do it. It's like I've never played the sport before. And the only thing that changes is my mental state in that moment, like how I'm thinking of that moment. Because in that moment when I was doing it and in that flow state, I wasn't thinking. I was calm. I was confident. I was feeling great. Follow that up by feeling like there was no shot in hell that I could even do anything with it.
So one of the key factors for being in the zone, the flow state, is being present, and so being in the moment. And so 12 for 12, freaking, I'm awesome. I'm a badass. That was an amazing season. Looking forward to next year. You're thinking about last year. You don't perform once, twice, 3 times. Now, last year was a fluke. I wasn't awesome. And so you can't change what's happening. You can't change the past. So then your beliefs about yourself start changing. Your beliefs match what you think's happening right now. And then now, oh crap, here it comes again. This is just like when I was 16 and went from all-star to not playing. Like, that same routine's happening again. And so by writing it out, recognizing that boundness, and being able to breathe through it and relax, your brain starts opening up. You have all the mental capabilities there, and then problems start getting solved. You know, if you've created your values and how you want to be and how you want to show up in that moment, that like, okay,
yeah,
and then you have steps to go forward.
So we have a lot of good ideas around how do we help young men and women that are dealing with difficult situations with their mindset. Any advice for someone who's dealing with a third nipple? Does your work help that?
I'm asking for a friend. That's.
I told you I would be able to wrap it back around at some point by the end of it. That's what I did. So I'll take your silence then as a we don't have anything yet, but just stay tuned.
I'm at a loss. It's rare that I'm at a loss.
So Clint, let the Building That audience know where we can find you. I am just so like intrigued by this. It's something that I feel like every single athlete needs in their life. So if you are a parent of someone who's playing sports at a competitive level, you need to reach out to Clint to find out more about what he's doing, to connect with him. And you do these things, it could be via Zoom, correct?
Via Zoom. I also do a monthly, the first Thursday, a parent info series where, the titles are The Car Ride Home, 10 years later. It's topics that a lot of private coaches, sport coaches, avoid because it could potentially create conflict. And I'm throwing it out there. And so the first Thursday, we talk about growth and fixed mindset. We talk about breathing. So you can find me on Instagram, athlete_first, 1ST. That's where I post everything about the first Thursday. And that's the best way to contact me about the mindset stuff.
And I'm thinking you'll have a client in the future, 16-year-old from Central Jersey, Denny Moralda Jr. He's a starting quarterback at the high school, and he'll be starting small forward on the basketball team. He with his mindset, when things are going well, he's on top of the world. But he's like us. He has that Moralda gene where he can get into his head a little bit and have that negative self-talk. So you might have a client.
It's not a gene.
With him. Yeah. Everybody has it, right? It's just we all have it.
So no, it's we learn more from our parents than eye color, hair color. And so at some point, he's heard you talk about your experiences. At some point, there's a connection there, and a gene implies that there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change your genetics. You can't change your DNA. It's a learned behavior. It's a learned habit, and so if it's learned, we can unlearn it. We can change it. We can replace it with something better. And so, just removing that word gene and turn it into learned habit, learned behavior, is a step in undoing that.
So I've just removed it from my vocabulary. You want to commit to that too? We'll commit to removing it from our...
Not a gene.
It's not a gene.
Unlearn that shit.
Yeah, it's a behavior. It's a habit.
And jeans are not something your significant other from your trip to Aruba is going to ask you to wear. They're not going to ask you to wear jeans at all on your trip.
Well, they might be cut off.
Might be cut off. Short
where the pockets are going to be showing because they're so high up. We're going to have Daisy Dukes on.
Your quad game is strong recently.
Damn, why do you think I've been working them out so damn hard? Front squats for days.
You're underselling yourself at 2,000, man. You need to 2,500 a day.
I know. See, I'm gonna start learning this, but the problem is once that number gets out there, now I'm gonna have people kicking down my door, and I'm screwed. It's out there in the open. We've been recording, so. But Coach Clint, dude, I wish I had you growing. I'm just thinking back to like my 12, 13, 14-year-old self, how much I could have benefited from this, and I really appreciate this conversation because it just opens up my eyes to when I eventually have kids, and then just looking at Dennis's son right now, who I feel like I'm a mentor to as well, and all these things I could use and apply right away, and it's just so beneficial for people to know this stuff and know that it's out there and someone can help them, with this and learn it as they go through that process.
Yeah, Clint, truly appreciate it, my man. Whatever we can do to help you get this message out there, we'd be happy to. We'll put all this information in the show notes. When we post this, we'll have a couple posts on Instagram as well, drawing people to your information, to your Instagram, to your website. Again, I truly believe that athletes need this in their life. Parents of athletes need this in their life. It's really important work. Truly appreciate you being on here, putting up with our nonsense for a period of time. It's like what we do, but it was definitely a good time. We'll definitely have to have you back in the future once you get this book out there, and if you need a forward or a recommendation or something, we'd be happy to contribute if we could in any way. It's an amazing project.
Oh hell yeah, I will keep you. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So find us on Building Men on Instagram, building.men. We're on all the social media spots. buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Go a step further than you thought you can go. Anthony, any final words?
Nope. I said everything.
You said everything? We're good. Take care, everyone. See you next time on Building Men.